Have you ever encountered an individual who remains unsettlingly composed, even when chaos erupts around them? When bad news breaks, they stay level-headed. When drama unfolds, they maintain their distance. During a heated confrontation, they simply observe from the periphery. At a glance, you might label them as cold, arrogant, or unapproachable. Most people make that assumption. But the reality is actually the polar opposite. That silence isn't a lack of feeling. It is a layer of armor so dense that it has become impenetrable. They don't avoid panic because they lack fear, but because they have already mentally rehearsed these catastrophic events hundreds of times before. When a person survives too much, their brain undergoes a fundamental rewiring. They no longer function on raw instinct alone. They analyze everything. They can detect a lie before the other person even begins to speak. What looks like an icy exterior is actually a highly developed survival tactic. In this discussion, we are going to examine 10 psychological indicators that a person has endured far too much in their life. You might even find that you recognize several of these traits within yourself. Sign number 1: empathy. Have you noticed that those who have survived significant suffering often possess an emotional radar that is incredibly finely tuned? Picture this scenario. You are at a crowded, noisy dinner party. There is laughter, the sound of glasses clinking, and loud music in the air. You are feeling isolated and miserable because of a personal issue, but you are working hard to project a cheerful image. You smile, you participate, and you act as if everything is fine. Almost everyone will be fooled by that smile and walk right past you. However, a person who has known true hardship won't be deceived. They will be the only one to approach you, lower their voice, and ask, "Are you truly doing okay?" They pick up on the slight crack in your voice that others overlook. They notice how your gaze falls when you think no one is watching. They sense the heavy silence you carry between your jokes. How are they able to do this? It isn't a supernatural power. It is because they are intimately familiar with what that silent agony feels like. They have been in your shoes. They have been that person in the middle of a crowd, screaming internally while no one else noticed. That isolation left a permanent mark on their soul, teaching them a lesson. I will never let someone else feel as discarded as I once did. Their past suffering has refined their heart, making it more tender and perceptive. They didn't learn empathy from reading a textbook. They earned it through their own physical and emotional scars. This deep empathy frequently leads to the next specific behavior. Sign number 2: they are constantly trying to ensure everyone else is okay. Don't mistake this for simple helpfulness. Imagine a scene like this. You're at a small gathering with some friends. Initially, the atmosphere is lighthearted. Everyone is joking and talking. Suddenly, two people start to argue. Their voices rise in volume. The room becomes thick with tension. And most people start looking for an exit. But there is always that one individual who steps directly into the conflict. They aren't necessarily the loudest person, but they are the one calm enough to intervene. They might say, "Hey, let's all take a breath. We don't need to let things get this heated." They skillfully steer the conversation elsewhere, softening the energy. And within moments, the room feels stable again, as if the fight never happened. In family dynamics, when trouble starts, they are usually the ones listening patiently without a word of complaint. In a professional setting, they quietly handle the most stressful projects, just so the team doesn't start attacking one another. They act like a sponge, soaking up the surrounding stress, so everyone else can breathe easier. Psychology refers to this as a savior complex. But for those who have been deeply hurt, it is often tied to a survival mechanism known as fawning. Their brain once learned a terrifying lesson. Conflict equals danger. And the best way to stay safe is to keep everyone else happy. The irony, however, is that they hold the umbrella for everyone else, while standing in the pouring rain themselves. They are the first to ask, "Are you all right?" Yet they are rarely asked the same thing in return. Even if someone does check on them, they usually give the same scripted response. "I'm fine, don't worry about it." On a subconscious level, looking after others is a way to soothe themselves. They hope that if the world stays calm and everyone else is content, then maybe they will finally feel safe too. But that sense of safety is incredibly thin. How can you ever truly be at peace when you spend every waking moment walking on eggshells to avoid upsetting people? This persistent anxiety keeps their nervous system in a state of high alert. This leads us to sign number 3, hyper-vigilance. When a person has spent years in an unstable environment, whether that was a violent household, a war zone, or a long-lasting toxic relationship, their brain loses the ability to turn off survival mode. Observe them when they enter a restaurant. They almost never sit with their back to the door. They will choose a corner table where they can lean against the wall and keep their eyes on the entrance. Why? Because they need to know exactly who is coming and going. When they walk into a new space, their eyes instinctively map out the room. Where are the exits? What could be used for protection? Who in this crowd looks like a potential threat? They are extremely sensitive to environmental cues. A slamming door, the sound of heavy footsteps, or a sudden shout can cause their heart to hammer and their muscles to lock up. Many combat veterans report that even after they return to the safety of their own homes, they cannot sleep soundly. A tiny rustle in the yard can bolt them awake. To an outsider, it might seem like they are overreacting. People might say, "Why are you so stressed? You're safe here." But those people don't understand that for someone who has survived too much, safety is a fragile concept. Their brain has learned that peace can be shattered in a heartbeat. Trauma expert Judith Herman noted that this constant scanning is a fundamental defense. Their mind is just doing its job, trying to prevent a repeat of the worst days of their life. When your nervous system is always looking for a threat, it naturally changes how you interact with other people. Which brings us to sign number 4. They find it incredibly difficult to truly trust anyone. You might have been their closest friend for a decade. You might even be their spouse. They may be incredibly kind and loyal to you. Yet you still feel like there is a glass wall between you and their innermost self. They don't let people in easily. They don't reveal their vulnerabilities or secrets without a fight. Try to see it from their perspective. If the people they trusted most in the past were the ones who caused them the most damage, if every time they were vulnerable, they ended up betrayed, abandoned, or exploited, then it makes total sense for them to build massive fortifications around their heart. It isn't because they are stuck up or cold. It is pure fear. They are terrified that if they drop their guard, the past will repeat itself. They would much rather be perceived as distant than risk letting someone in who might destroy their world again. For them, trust isn't something you get for free. It is a high-value currency that must be earned through years of consistent action. and passing countless tests. But when you don't feel safe trusting others, you have to manage every possible problem on your own. This extreme self-reliance often leads directly into sign number 5, overthinking. People who have faced significant hardships often become reluctant analysts of their own lives. They scrutinize everything. They look at a text message and wonder, why didn't they include a heart today? Are they mad at me? They analyze a brief interaction at work. Why did the manager look at me that way? Am I going to get fired? They create contingency plans for every possible outcome. Plan A, Plan B, all the way down to the worst-case Plan Z. In the film Spider-Man: No Way Home, the character MJ says something that resonated with millions. If you expect disappointment, then you can never really be disappointed. Many people laugh at the cynicism of that line. But those who have been through the fire don't laugh. They recognize it as a psychological shield. If you are always braced for the worst, then you won't be blindsided when it happens. You won't fall apart because you were already expecting it. For these individuals, overthinking is a way to try and organize the chaos of existence. They believe that if they can just think enough, nothing will ever catch them off guard. Of course, the cost of this is total mental burnout. And when someone is that exhausted, what do they want more than anything? That brings us to sign number 6. They value stability above all else. After surviving a lifetime of storms, whether they were financial, familial, or emotional, the thing an experienced person wants most isn't adventure or thrill-seeking. It is quiet. It is the peace of a predictable, even mundane life. They find a deep sense of security in daily rituals. They like waking up at the same hour. They like getting the same coffee from the same shop. They enjoy a clean house, a structured schedule, and a clear path forward. To a young person who hasn't faced much trouble, this kind of routine might feel like a cage. But for someone who has been through the wreckage, that routine feels like heaven. Predictability serves as an anchor, preventing them from being swept back out into the sea of uncertainty. They cherish the days where nothing happens, because they understand a truth most people ignore. A boring, normal day is a massive blessing. To protect this internal peace, they often need their own space. Sign number 7. They truly cherish their alone time. Don't mistake this for being antisocial or depressed. Think of it like this. If their brain were a smartphone, the constant state of high alert, the empathy and the analysis of others would be like running dozens of power-hungry apps at once. Their battery dies very quickly, and being alone is how they recharge. Spending time by themselves allows them to sort through the complicated emotions they've absorbed from others throughout the day. It is the only time they are allowed to take off the strong mask. It's when they don't have to manage anyone's feelings, read anyone's body language, or try to please anyone. They can sit for hours with a book, walk through a park solo, or just listen to music in the dark. For those who have endured too much, being alone isn't loneliness. It is total freedom. It is the safest environment for them to tend to the wounds that no one else can see. Because they are so used to being alone and handling their own business, they develop a very intense personality trait. This leads to sign number 8, extreme independence. You will see that these people almost never ask for a hand. They move their own furniture. They figure out how to fix their own cars. They go to the hospital alone when they are unwell. They solve their own money problems. Even if you step in and say, "Let me help you with that," Their gut reaction is usually, "It's fine, I've got it." Why are they so insistent on doing everything themselves? It isn't that they don't want support. Deep down, everyone wants to feel like they can lean on someone. But they have learned a very painful lesson. Relying on others is a gamble. In their past, maybe every time they reached out for help, they were turned away, shamed, or forced to pay a price they couldn't afford. They learned that the only person who will never let them down, and the only person they can actually control, is themselves. This independence is a point of pride and a suit of armor. It keeps them alive, but it can also become a prison of isolation, forcing them to carry the weight of the entire world without ever putting it down. That heavy burden often results in a quiet, underlying sorrow. Sign number 9. They carry a very silent sadness within them. From the outside, they look like the most typical people you'd meet. They hold down jobs, they joke with their coworkers, they go on vacations, and they share happy moments on social media. Their lives look perfect, maybe even something to be jealous of. But the eyes never lie. If you catch them in a moment when they aren't performing, you won't see happiness. You will see a faint cloud of exhaustion. The look of someone who has traveled a very difficult road. A part of their soul has already witnessed the darkest, most raw aspects of humanity and life. And the burden of that knowledge is heavy. Once you have seen the truth of how hard life can be, you can't just pretend you don't know. Think about someone like Robin Williams, one of the most brilliant comedians to ever live. He spent his entire career making millions of people laugh until it hurt. He was the face of joy and energy. Yet, very few people realized that behind the curtain, he was fighting a battle with depression. Later, it was revealed he was also suffering from Lewy body dementia. His story is a tragic but vital reminder that the most profound sadness is often masked by the widest smiles. People who have been through too much are often like those sad clowns. They know exactly what pain feels like, so they work extra hard to make others laugh, so no one else has to feel that same bitterness. But the narrative doesn't have to end in sorrow. If it did, life would be incredibly cruel. The final sign is that they transform their pain into wisdom. After all the trauma, the losses, and the nights spent awake, many of these people do not break. They rise, and they don't just return to who they were before. They become something greater. In the field of psychology, this is known as post-traumatic growth. Hardship doesn't destroy them, it tempers them like steel. History is packed with people who fit this description. Look at Abraham Lincoln. His entire life was a series of heartbreaks. He lost his mother as a child, lost his first love, failed in business multiple times, lost several elections, and struggled with crippling depression. Yet those agonizing years created a man who was uniquely compassionate, incredibly strong, and deeply thoughtful. His understanding of human misery allowed him to guide the United States through its most violent era, and finally end the practice of slavery. He is regarded as one of the greatest leaders in history, and many believe his suffering is what gave him such profound depth. Or consider Steve Jobs. He was publicly fired from Apple, the company he started from nothing. It was a massive humiliation and a source of great pain. He later admitted it was the most bitter medicine he ever had to take. But instead of letting that defeat end him, he used it as fuel to reinvent himself. He founded Pixar and eventually returned to Apple to revolutionize the world of technology. The quiet exhaustion you feel is simply the fading echo of every heavy storm you had to weather entirely alone.